Hi, I'm Christian Science Chaplain Angela, and I volunteer in Sonoma and Solano counties. Well, currently we are in the middle of the pandemic, and we're sheltering in place, and we have been for several months. And at the beginning of this thing, it was really hard to think about having to stay away from going to visit these men in the state prison. I've been going every single week. And so there was really kind of a sense of feeling like I had lost an anchor. And I had to learn how to pray in a whole new way to support these men. Lately, I've been thinking about a couple of experiences that have really helped me to think through this new way of supporting and praying for and working with these men that are incarcerated. I remembered a time where there was a gentleman who had visited Christian Science church service, and it was maybe his second or third time, and he just was loving everything that he was learning about the Bible. I remember back to a time where all of us were sitting in a circle and we were having a Christian Science church service, and as we often do, we stopped to talk about different ideas. And one of the ideas that we were all very intrigued with was a verse in John where Jesus says that that we should do the works that he do, and that we can even do greater works than he does because he goes to his Father. Well, we were very interested in this phrase, greater works. And so as I asked the men, well, what do you think these greater works are? One of the inmates was so excited. He had just been reading a chapter in Science and Health, and he pulled out his Science and Health and he said, I know what the greater works are. So he read the passage where Mrs. Eddy says that there is this great brotherhood, and the rich in spirit help the poor in one grand brotherhood, and that everyone seeks their own in another's good. And he said, that's the greater works, is this grand brotherhood. And he said, that's what you all are doing when you're coming in here. You are doing the greater works because you're finding your own in another's good and supporting us in this way. This has come back to mind because there was another incident that made me tie these two experiences together and start to think in a whole new way about how to pray about the worldwide situation that we're in, and also how to pray to support those who are in facilities that we're not able to go see right now. Another experience was I was meeting with an inmate, and he had been, this was maybe his third or fourth visit to a Christian Science church service, and he just was so interested in everything that he was learning about God and about Christ Jesus and about the Bible and his place and his salvation. So he was just full of a lot of really great questions. And I had several inmates that I was meeting with before talking to him. So as I approached him, I said, thank you so much for your patience, as he was waiting for me. And he said, how did you know? And I said, how did I know what? And he said, how did you know patience is what I wanted to talk to you about? So we started to talk about this idea of patience as a spiritual quality and the expectancy of good. That it's not so much about waiting for a long period of time, it's really more about waiting on God and being ready to expect good from God. Then this gentleman asked me, he had been reading this in Science and Health, and he read back this quote that he had found that Mrs. Eddy said that truth is semper apparatus. And he said, what does that mean? And I smiled when I told him it means always ready, which was perfect with what we had just been talking about with patience. Well, as we were talking more about this idea of patience, we talked about anger and reacting. He really felt like he had an issue with not being able to control his temper and was finding himself in a lot of sticky situations because he would react before he could even think. So we began talking about this idea of patience and being always ready for good, not reacting because we're expecting evil, but to be expectant of good. And so he really took those ideas to heart. Well, the following week, I met with this same gentleman, and he was so excited. He could not wait to tell me that he had put into practice these ideas of being patient and expecting good. And he said there were several instances where he felt himself wanting to react, but he was able to find that self-control and instead just completely let the situation go. And he was discovering this whole new sense of harmony in his experience, right where he was with a cellie who was very volatile and seemed to be constantly antagonizing him. He was finding his own sense of self-control and his sense of peace with this newfound idea of patience. Well, since we have not been able to go into the state prisons to see these gentlemen, we have continued, of course, to pray for them without ceasing and to send in literature and different articles and Bible verses that we feel would be supportive and inspiring to them at this time. And I have found myself getting rather anxious and feeling like I really must be there to support them. This of all times, they're the most vulnerable population, and so I've really had to think very deeply about this and really pray to trust. And one of these packets that we sent in to the gentleman, the same inmate, the second one who was learning about patience, wrote a letter to the state committee, and he was so grateful for all the prayers and all the packets that were being sent to him. But the main point of his letter was to tell us that he was praying for us. And I realized all this work that has been done, all the deep searching and deep yearning that these guys have been engaged with, this is their opportunity to dig in, and they are not only helping each other, but they are praying for us. And so my thought went back to this idea of patience and expectancy, and it went back to that experience with the gentleman who was learning about what the greater works are. And it's helped me rethink about this whole pandemic situation. This is our opportunity for the greater works, rich in spirit, helping the poor in one grand brotherhood.